Recording in progress.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Lilan Xiang Weiss and Alex Weiss. And welcome to the title of this webinar series is called
Creativity through and cacophony. Cacophony definitely is in there.
Creativity Amidst a World of Cacophony. And let me give you a little bit of background of this sort of interview and sharing and presentation. And let me give you first the context of who I am for those of you who don't know us. I'm Lilan Xiang Weiss, and I'm licensed as an acupuncturist in North Carolina since 2005. And since the whole shift from early spring of last year with this worldwide pandemic, a lot of things shifted, I think, for a lot of people. And one of the topics that we started talking about and seeing how important it is the importance of creativity amidst this huge change. And that was probably the sort of one of the foundations of how we are now meeting live in public for this interview because I just started doing things differently, basically showing more of what the things that I love. And since we're both doing kind of people, I felt like doing and presenting in ways that felt truer to my heart and easier and creatively was important. And so I decided to share a little bit more of my spiritual practices, and part of that includes creativity and presenting the beautiful things in my community that are of spiritual nature. You could say some are religious. And I also felt that, got it plugged in. I also felt that I was hiding aspects of myself because for a lot of different reasons, but in part probably because I was trying to fit into a mold. Being Asian, being an immigrant, being a woman, and having an image of myself that I thought maybe was more appropriate. And so I kind of let go of a lot of things.
A lot of your acupuncture clients is just finding out that you actually play music.
That's true.
It's much to their shock. She plays those drums?
Yeah, I used to divide my life. Like when I first started practice, I said, Alex, I don't want anybody to know that, any of my clients to know that I play music. And I didn't really know why. I just knew that I needed that separation. So slowly over, up now it's almost like 20 years now, I've slowly opened up. And so here I am wanting to then, I realized one of my favorite things to do is to help other people. And I've feel fortunate that I followed that in my heart. And then the ways of how to help people have come about. And during this whole pandemic, I realized how important it was for me to support the people that are close to me. And that has included the practitioners at Armonia Health, which is the wellness center that I run and which we're filming out of.
And your primary house cleaner?
Actually, he's the primary cook. Right. Yeah, primary cook.
Yes.
And house caretaker.
Right, I don't do a whole lot of cleaning. I do raking and blowing and splitting wood.
Yeah, and lots of cooking.
Lots
so
of
he
cooking.
keeps me nourished while I have to, now be out there.
Hunting and gathering. I go out shopping and find the vegetables and the fish and stuff and bring it home and
Yes.
compose
Yeah.
dinners.
Yeah. So that's Alex and I have had these great conversations over the years that probably no one has heard of, really. And that's why I'm wanting to share this, because he has lots of other sides to him.
I didn't introduce myself yet.
That's right, so now it's your turn.
So, of course, the three of you online now all know plenty, but for the recording, I'm a multi-instrumentalist and composer. And maybe I should just read it. Music educator, storyteller. As a doing person, I've produced about 9 CDs over 9 releases, music releases, and 1 book, and plenty of short stories that I haven't released in the realm of being creative. Okay.
Should Alex speak up? Yes?
Yes?
Yes.
All right. So I'm happy to collaborate with Leland. We've been collaborating on a lot of different realms, from marriage to Tones for Your Bones and music with the band. In all different levels, we collaborate creatively. And that's what I do now, the mixture of cooking and music and whatever else comes my way to be creative in.
Yeah.
And be useful.
Be useful. And, collaboration is a funny word between us because we have slightly different opinions about the ease of collaboration.
And the process of collaborating.
So, if you find me debating Alex, it's okay if you want to get mad at me, but it's just we have differing opinions.
Right, and also I'm a contrary person, so there's going to be, that enters into creativity too.
And you think I'm not contrary. Imagine we're both contrary, and then some fire, By the way, we're both young fire elements in the Chinese astrology.
This is like that story with the enlightened being and the interviewer that comes from the West to interview him, and the enlightened being, he's ancient person, and the interviewer says, "What is the secret to your longevity?" And this wonderful guru says, never argue with a fool. And the interviewer says, "That's not right." And the wise person says, "You're right."
Well, I guess we're not wise.
Not yet.
Hey there on Facebook, can you hear us by any chance? If you'll write on the comments, you can hear us. Okay.
Is there anyone out there?
Yes, there's one person. So it says 1, but we don't know who it is. Yeah. Okay, so we'll continue. All right.
All right.
So, is anything else you want to say about yourself?
No.
Oh, you
it's
know
okay.
what? Okay. Well, let me lead this interview as.
You're the boss now.
Thank you. I want you to, Alex, to share two things. One, how were you when you were a little boy, and do you relate to the term of being a black sheep?
Okay, first, I was a hyper little kid, and I was either thrown out of school or actually diplomatically just asked not to come back because I couldn't sit still. And in those days, they had different terminology. Hyper was what I heard most. Nowadays, they might say attention deficit. But I ended up learning that I can pay attention to things if I'm interested, and I just cannot. If I'm not interested in something, I can't make myself pay attention to it. And I've heard that as a definition for attention deficit. Okay, so that was kind of how I was. And then as I got into my teen years, I somehow mellowed out. And I got kind of into meditation and into reflecting and thinking about things and philosophy and reading. Music was a part of it even before that.
Right.
I was hyper when I started music. Yeah, music was a part of it. And I don't know, I just slowly got out of the hyper part. Attention deficit, still kind of, my attention, I still cannot concentrate on something that I'm not interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But I've worked my life so that it works for me around the things that I like.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think that?
I didn't get to the other part, the black sheep.
Okay, all right.
See, my attention ain't that bad. Black sheep, the term I hear the term I've never used it. I guess I can consider myself the black sheep of the family in the sense that I push the boundaries. I never listen. I always did. I call it contrary. My mother said do something. I would do it a different way. I just had this nature to be contrary, and that could lead to someone being termed the black sheep of the family. But I don't feel like it has a negative connotation, and I don't feel like my mother and father actually put me in that bracket verbally like that. Maybe they felt that way, but they didn't. I see it more as I was a contrary person. I still am. I have a tendency to do things differently. Who is that great the great poet, American poet and activist Henry David Thoreau? He said, I'm going to quote it so I get it right. If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him keep step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away. Which kind of speaks to that. People being different and not fitting in the roles of how they're supposed to be, or what's considered normal, or how you're supposed
Well, and
to
the term, the contrary and just of a different color, black sheep versus white sheep, which is very black and white, but it's almost like the term that is imposed by the other. And so I had done a short video where I was in my way of understanding English, which is my third language. I wanted to push the boundaries of what it meant, because I saw myself as a black sheep, not in a negative way, even though I'm told by a lot of people that's the definition.
That's a negative connotation.
Yeah, well, but okay, well, that's someone else's opinion of it.
I like
mine.
the word contrary better because I think people have a contrary tendency that exists in any culture. Like I listen to the radio. I could be listening to the radio, and as soon as they say, keep your dial tuned to, I immediately want to change the station. I just, I don't like being told what to do. Like that.
Yeah, that's a little different, not being told what to do from being contrary.
Well, I think it comes out in music, too.
Right. Well, let's put it to creativity or music, because what does that mean, being contrary? You think when it comes to art, the arts?
Well, for one thing, it lends to originality. Like I'll take a song that I'm writing and say it's a simple melody. Contrarily, I will just find a way to make it more complex. And then vice versa. I'll take an odd tempo thing that comes through me in 7/4 time and I say, how normal can I make this sound? I just want to go from one end to the other like that, to move things. And I think that lends towards being creative, or somehow it's...
Now, it sounds like, pushing the boundaries, right?
Mm.
And it reminds me of in Eastern philosophy, the way to balance something out is always looking at the opposite end. So that kind of is what it reminds me of. And I mean, why do you think it's important to?
I don't know if it's important. I'm saying it's an inclination of mine. I just noticed it over the years and years that often, not all the time, but often, I'd be inclined to, take something that seemed to should go in one direction and take it in another direction. And again, you don't think it pertains to the radio when someone tells me to stay on your dial, and I immediately to switch it to La Lake to hear Mexican music to clear the palate, kind of.
Well, you said it. I don't like being told what to do.
What I can't figure out if it's I wonder if some of these things I feel are inclinations, whether you're just born that way or whether you develop these things. Like I feel a lot of things you're born with, not everything, but a lot of things people that have a good sense of timing is something that I think you're born with. Like people have a good sense of direction. You can't teach a good sense of direction or common sense. People that don't have, they could study, they could be brilliant, but if they don't have common sense, it's not something that you're taught. It's something that just you have or you don't, and to varying degrees. It's not black and white. And it's the same thing with music and music inclinations and contrariness. Everyone has different. I think there's a society in Native Americans that there's a word for that, people that are contrary.
Yeah, the
Hayoka, right.
Hayoka is a person, and they play a particular role,
Yeah.
for sure, of presenting another way of seeing things.
Yeah.
And the way I describe myself these days is trying to be a bridge between the seen and the unseen. So kind of like what people don't necessarily see about you, we're trying to see if we can transmit it.
Or maybe why I am the way I am.
Yeah, but I wanted to just finish that topic we were on, because it feels to me that to be in touch with your heart space, like what's true for your heart, might involve an aspect of contrariness, because who's to say that, how would you know that you're true to your heart if you don't look within and then see that, I like to do things a little differently because everybody else has done it a certain way. I want to do it a little differently. Don't you think that might be a way of connecting deeper to oneself, maybe?
It feels more in line with my feeling, and it permeates in a lot of different ways. I mean, I've always hated crowds. I've always hated.
And can I present how you're a crab? He's a crab, a Cancer sun sign, and also a Cancer moon sign. So I realized just this year, after 20 years of knowing him, how deeply you feel about things, different from how I feel about things. And so, like you're saying how you feel about crowds, I finally understand how maybe deeply you feel.
I think
that.
there's a tendency towards being contrary is when I'm trying to understand why I feel that way. It's also tied into kind of individuality, and that's why I'm saying crowds. When I'm in growing up in the city, I just didn't like it. There's something about the city for me. Now someone else could feel totally different,
Yeah.
but for me, it's just like this masses and the sameness, and the crowds all kind of have this feeling of like anonymousness, or and for me that's how it's always subtly felt. When I'm alone or out in a small group out in nature, it's a very different feeling. It's more of wonder.
So, hey, because I had this question this morning. Do you think being in your creative process is in part an alone process to a certain extent?
For me it is. For me, well, musically it has been for me. Because now we're splitting it, because really, in another sense, the creative process is in everything in life, and how you get up, how you choose to. I want to do yoga while I'm getting dressed, I can be creative and use one foot to get my sock on, and that's a stretch. So to me, creativity could be in everything. But when I do music, which is supposedly like my discipline, it's usually it's alone, and not only is it alone, but it's composing aspect, not the performing. The composing requires immersing myself in it, going in. What was the definition for immersing? It was like deep mental involvement. That was one of the definitions. And that process almost always needed to happen when I was composing. I had to really get so involved in it, absorbed in it. It could take days, it could take weeks, sometimes even months. There's tunes that I've written that came together over years. Like one part of the melody just hung out for years as a little melody, and then all of a sudden it got married to this other one, and it became Signs of Movement, this one on the Nourishment CD. So immersing to me is was for me. And then again, I don't know, other people might be quick. I consider myself slow. So I have to just sit with it and really get immersed in it.
Mm-hmm.
When there's a melody or a rhythm or something, and slowly it usually evolves.
And when it came to performing, there a few years back, I was trying to see if Alex would like to tune into my healing sessions as an acupuncturist. And and we were trying to see if he could incorporate his more meditative music into the session as, part of the realm of sound healing, for example. And as we're talking through and working through the logistics of trying to collaborate, at one point he said to me that when he's playing music and when you're improvising, it's a very inward focus, a very inward concentration, so that I was asking you to feel, what was surrounding and feel the other person there, and then sort of me giving you cues of what I was perceiving, through the session, so you could fit in. And we realized it was,
It was not doable.
Right.
It was different, and so there's this. It's hard for me to always. I could be aware of the surrounding, and I could feel guided, but it's not it's like very mysterious or ethereal. It's hard to know for me whether what's coming into me to play is my own idea or influenced by what I'm feeling. It could go either way.
Well, and that is how I work these days. Yeah, that it becomes somewhat personal and also impersonal to the space. And you wrote something about
The creativity being both impersonal and personal.
Yeah, can you explain?
Yeah, that was
more?
really where I wanted to start, because creativity, in one sense, I see it as this force or this reality, kind of like sunlight or gravity. It just is. And it's not good or bad, it just is. If you're high up in a tree and you fall, then gravity is a bad thing in that situation. But if you're trying to pee and there's no gravity and it all goes in your face, then you really want gravity. So creativity, I don't know, creativity just kind of, it is. It's like a big river that you tap into, and everyone taps in different ways, or more, greater or lesser, or sometimes one month will be just incredible, one day or week, or there's so many variations. But to me, creativity is there like that, and we tap into it. It's just this force. The other aspect, and that I could talk more about, is how it personally affects everyone differently. And again, to different degrees. Some people might say, "Oh, I'm not accountant. I'm an accountant. I don't deal with creativity." I don't know. But to some degree, it usually affects everybody, to greater or lesser. And in the greater, it can affect it. The greater part of creativity it's different for everybody. It's like a face. Two people's face is the same. Everyone has different, and creativity affects everyone differently according to all the other, like I say, strong points and weak points or whatever that color the creativity as it comes. I consider creativity as something that comes through you. When I look at some of the pieces I've written, it's like, I don't know. I immersed myself and something came through and evolved out of it.
You allowed. I mean, when you immerse yourself, you're allowing in a certain way.
Which also, in a sense, requires sacrifice, because it takes time and energy. And you have to really want to do it, I would think. I don't know of any composers that were like chained down and made to create. You usually want to.
Or you're listening to something that feels like you need to do this.
I liken it to the birthing process. Again, this is my uterus talking.
Yeah, Alex was the first man that I've encountered who describes his creative process of music as birthing.
Yeah, in two ways. One, it takes a while to develop a piece. And I'm not talking about a simple melody, but actually taking responsibility and developing that melody and adding harmonies and putting a rhythm in and creating an arrangement and a beginning. And it takes time. And it takes... The other aspect is that in the time of your life, at least for me, it was like songs started happening, when I was in my late teens. Now, women have children in their late teens or early teens even, and the birthing process of songs went all the way through. By the time I was 40, in my late 40s, I wanted to have my tubes tied. I was done, but songs kept coming through. It's like, cause, and I have the capacity to write, but it takes time and energy. And after you know, how many kids do you need to have in your life? When I have 102, close to 200 songs, there are 200 babies floating around in the world. Most of them are just in a drawer. They're like in orphanages. They haven't lived on their own, other than the ones that made it on CDs, and the ones our band plays. So anyway, there's a point where you kind of feel like that's enough. And I still write. Just recently, I rewrote a piece. I had a hernia operation, and I couldn't do much for a month, so I transposed a piece from horn to recorder because I could play it. And it's on our website, on my website. It's called Mysterious Earth. And I could still sit down and compose, but I don't have that urge anymore. And that's, again, like women usually have an urge to have babies, to have families in a certain period of their life, 20s and 30s, now maybe into their early 40s. And then, that urge kind of shifts, and their life shifts. Well, to me, they're very similar, my urge to compose and the time period that I composed in. And now I can still compose and would if someone commissioned me. But my interests are, the urge to do that has left. Plus, I still have all these CDs to sell. CDs? Want CD?
Moonchild.
CD?
And so, because a woman's hormones, just because she stops being able to create a child through her uterus, the hormones still are responsive to the moon cycles, to her surroundings. They're still there. And so that's what it reminds me of, the capacity to create, which, we're commenting on how it's possible for males and females, humans to do that, to create, it's just intensity. The intensity and the concentration of it is
Also, you need to keep growing. So a lot of that energy now has been transferred to cooking. Now at 4 o'clock, at 4 o'clock I practice my horn. Now at 4 o'clock I open the refrigerator door and I look at the different vegetables and I say, okay, there's the string section over here. There's the rhythm section over here. How can we get the spices in there? It's composing, and similar to music, I can immerse myself in it. Usually I use it's kind of a trinity. Is that too religious of it? It's a trinity. I have a glass of wine, I cook, and I listen to the news. Sometimes I alternate. Sometimes I just listen to music because the news I don't recommend listening to every day.
I asked him not to listen to the news while cooking, please. My food. and yesterday's meal, which we had a dear longtime friend over, turned out extra delicious. Because there was
she was talking to me, putting good energy into the vibe. But, wow.
But the energy part, you mentioned that a lot, because I was thinking, well, just like we were talking about this concentrated output in a certain part of your life, but if we're really feeling that river of creativity, because I wrote about that too this year, of like the infinite possibilities of creativity, and it really felt that way. And you just mentioned the river metaphor, and that was improvised. We didn't talk about that comparison. And so really at any stage maybe in our lives, we tap into, because like my mother, she's in her 70s, and she's now doing the creative output that I think she always wanted.
She's an unusual example.
But it's just
but
saying,
there isn't.
It's never too late.
Right.
Right? It's never too late. And hey, would you say that, hey, I had this interesting imagery when you were talking about tapping into the creative. So I was thinking, could we say that humans in their creative process, is almost like making love to a divine source?
That's kind of embellished.
That's what it felt like to me. It's like this. I know what you said. Because hey, we know that a sperm and an egg is what it takes to make a fetus. So a yin and a yang, makes a fetus. And so if we're sort of creating an output, and there's a source, which in Chinese they would call yin, and the energy within our hearts or in our minds is the yang, then you have two of those, and then out comes.
Yeah, I mean, I could see everyone, just like there's so many different ways to create, everyone perceives it differently. Kind of like spirituality or God, you know, people perceive it differently.
So
There's different ways of perceiving the force, but it just is.
feeling fertilized. But
Yeah, and you know, I'm not even sure that everyone wants to be creative. In some ways, you know, it complicates your life immensely.
oh
When-
yeah, I want you to, could you tap into that? Because I remember as I am in my creative process, I love that Alex went through it, you know, in that period, and I said, so what was it like when all of a sudden, you know, you're in the middle of your day and this idea comes through that you just have to stop and write it down, and you had a very interesting perspective that you relate to me.
What was that?
You said it made my life really
Yeah,
complicated.
it did. Here's
Why?
an,
Why, please?
because in most people's lives, especially in your 30s and 40s, you're busy. You're working. You're taking care of kids. You're going from one thing to another, and all of a sudden, a song pops up. That was a little of that song. That song is called Long Day, and that's why I named it that. It was a day that I just could not. And fortunately, I wrote that in probably 1988. It's in 6/4 time. I was experimenting with different rhythms, and it came through on the recorder. I ended up arranging it for French horn, soprano, sax, and cornet, and 2 recorders. It was a full sound. It took a lot of time to develop that song. I didn't have the time when it came through, but yet when it's time to have a baby, you can't say, "Oh no, tomorrow, come tomorrow. I'm not ready yet." It's like you have to stop and work. Or fortunately, I had that in those days, in the 80s and early 90s, I had a good cassette player, and things like that would come through. I would just press the recorder and record the idea down, and then go on. And usually that was enough to, when I had time to go back to it within a day or two and develop it. I mean, one time a melody came through to me. I had a window cleaning business, and I was on my way to do a big house, and the melody came through. I was riding, the road is called Mount Sinai, you know, the edge of Durham, Chapel Hill area. And I got to the place, and I said to the lady, "Do you have any music paper?" And she said, "No." And I said, just give me blank paper. I drew the staff lines and I wrote the melody because I didn't have my recorder with me. And I just wrote, and she served me tea. I felt like I was the court jester, the court, you know, musician. And, you know, she served me tea and I wrote the piece, and not the whole piece. I wrote enough of it, again, just so I can continue it. And then I did the windows. Anyway, so I'm just saying that it takes some dedication and it takes some sacrifice. Here's a CD. Let's find it. This one is called Early Music. And it has 2 meanings, early music. One is that most of this music was compositions, duets and trio stuff written in early 1600s. Even the late 1400s, I think there's a few pieces. The other thing is, this was recorded also probably 1990. I first did this. And I was busy all the time. I recorded almost this whole piece, this whole CD, between the hours of 10 at night and 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. So early. And because that was the only time I had to do it. And I did it, you know, it took about a month, or 3 weeks, several weeks. And at this point, too, it was before digital was just becoming popular. I had my own 4-track player, and I did all the parts. And I did all the engine. This is the only CD that I did like that. And early music, but that's, again, speaks to, you know, it's a sacrifice, it's dedication. I mean, I was going on very little sleep and just focused on getting that out. And I'm glad I did it, because a lot of those pieces, I had a really rehearse and I created new arrangements. I don't think I could do that now. I don't think my hands could do it, you know.
And, it almost feels like that, what you were saying, you were born with that hyperactivity. Like sometimes when I hear all the things that you did in those years before, I knew you at 49. And, in your 30s and early 40s, maybe your 20s, it's like, darn, it's like you had a lot of energy to do all of that and work all the time and raise your, family and then, dedicate to the music. I was like, it's impressive.
Well, it's a sacrifice, in a way. I mean, you can't do everything all the time. I
Right.
think my kids wished I spent more time with them. I was there, but I was often involved in giving lessons or rehearsing or whatever. And my teacher used to say something, my trumpet teacher, I studied trumpet for 6-7 years, and he used to say, you become a slave to your instrument. That was one of the things he used to say. Because in order to play it really proficiently, you have to practice all the time. Fortunately for me, the recorders and the harmonica and even the drums, you don't have to play all the time to be able to play it, at least, at the level I can play it. You have to practice to learn it. The horn, like my horn teacher said, to really play it, you need to be playing all the time, and probably other instruments like that.
Now, he meant that way from like a point of mastering the instrument, right?
Right, not
Yeah.
just to play it, not just to be able to play a few tunes.
Yeah.
Right. No, he meant to. I mean, he made his living playing. He played in New York and Radio City. He played on Johnny Carson show, and he needed an extra. He did albums with Hungarian, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, he meant on his level.
Mm-hmm.
But right, anyone could or most people, you don't need to do that in order especially recorders or harmonica.
Thanks, Alex. Now, let's see. Would you say creativity, you coined the term back last year, I think, creativity for health through creativity.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I did. I forgot why.
So I
No,
have
I
this
think
tendency of
I
needing
think-
to know why. It's very particular
Well,
to me.
okay, so
Yes.
on the other side of it's a sacrifice. On the other side, it's difficult. That's only one side. The other side of it, it feels good. It opens things up. It keeps you growing. So so yes, it is a sacrifice to compose and work out pieces or to practice an instrument intensely. But there's also nourishing aspects about it. And so being creative is nourishing too. So that's an important aspect. So it's not just a sacrifice. It is nourishing, and it's exploration. It keeps you moving and growing, and I think that's important in life, whatever you do, to keep growing and keep exploring and keep. So part of composing was like exploring. Here's another tune that I explored. It's in B minor, and at that time, and this is back in '78. I composed this in New York. I was in my parents' basement. I was experimenting with this key because it was new to me. And I was like, just getting my fingers to do it. And it's in exploring. That's often how compositions, how you create. You're trying something new. Again, this kind of runs into the contrary thing too. Like, let's try to do it this way. And these are things that kind of lead towards creativity.
Or going on an adventure.
And that's how Wonder came out.
Wonder. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like what you mentioned about growing, because that reminds me. Thank you. Oh yeah, and our dear friend in Colombia remembers that song very well. She's playing the maracas, I think. The Chinese medicine says that the key to health is keep your qi moving, keep your energy moving. That's all it is. Keeping things moving, and then you find the right pace that movement. So I like what
so
you mentioned
creativity
about
helps move the energy.
yeah,
And it involves it involves lots of things.
the mind, the heart, your hands. Oh, I like to teach how our hands are the connection to our heart, and I think all music uses hands. Oh no, voice uses the voice, obviously.
Right.
But that's the connection to the heart too. But
It also involves thinking in different ways. It makes you think different. It helps you, like they say music is mathematical. I guess for some people it is. And me, I've always been bad at math. I rely on my ears to guide me musically. But when I have to transpose, it's all about relationships, and it's mathematical. You know, there's that aspect to it, and that has helped me. That has helped me in math. You know, now I'm good at the checkout line better. You know.
but also, you hear about people with Alzheimer's doing well with music. Yeah. Why was I talking about? You were
It's a
mentioning-
different part of their brain that
Right,
it activates, and they can forget what happened yesterday, but they'll remember things like, "Oh, we ain't got a barrel of." That's a preview.
yes, that's going to be an example of our flow of creativity these days. Yeah, thank you, Alex, for that. State of being, Alex. Creativity is a state of being rather than a product. Over the years, we've had a lot of conversations because I was always telling Alex, I'm not really interested in this lifetime in producing a product. And that has translated to a choice of, not having children this lifetime. And I just couldn't see myself necessarily putting anything out. Like, I was more interested for a while in the experience of life and of service to others. And so we'd have that conversation about, is it necessary to have an outward public product?
Well, all these aspects exist, and each person chooses which one and to what degree they want to do it. Whether they're focused on products or whether they're focused on, like teaching is another example of, there's a great element to music. I enjoy teaching. I like seeing people learn. Now that's not really a product, I don't think, but
it's a learning
an
experience. Yeah.
And it's an aspect of music or anything that's enjoyable.
I think the reason why I posed that question is that I kept seeing you in the linear world of music and of, making money some and playing and being paid for it, because money is a way of an artist to feel appreciated. And that solely a lot of times relied on the product. At least in this, maybe it's this capitalist world, which when we've traveled to other countries like Cuba,
there's more appreciation for music, and there's more understanding of it, where it comes from.
Or Colombia,
or Haiti,
or Peru,
Colombia,
or anywhere.
right.
I mean, yeah.
Haiti. I remember people that you could feel. I could feel them hearing it. I was playing rhythms at the time, usually, and I could feel them just kind of, you could play the same rhythms on 9th Street, and people just kind of, it's like it doesn't even exist. But it speaks to people, and Cuba would be also an example. In other places, it spoke to people more, just did.
Yeah, and that's what I've noticed about living in, America or United States, I'd say for the past 20 years, is I can feel that pull of like producing outward, of always like growing, having to, like keep going up a ladder. And I was like, this is not sustainable. It's like, how can you just keep going? And always thinking about money. And though that is one of the aspects of the advantage of the opportunities.
It's not just producing, it's also being bombarded by stuff. We're constantly being bombarded. Things are in our mind. We have to think of this, we have to do this, we have to do. So if someone hears the music on the street, it's just not another intrusion. They're not separate. They don't just stop and say, wow. Nothing. The lifestyle here isn't conducive to that. That kind of openness. It's conducive. They might, if they're wealthy enough, set aside or fortunate enough to set aside time and go to a concert, and then they listen. But it's not in their. It's funny how people can go to a concert and focus, but they plan that, and they're ready for that psychologically. It's not in the ordinary flow of life it's more so in other countries. It can be more so.
Or a way of
Spontaneous.
living that I don't know if we want to categorize it of like planning ahead and you don't just barge into someone's life, you respect what they have, and there's this sometimes a little energetic wall maybe that is formed where then we can't really deepen in a lot of these heart connections that come through creativity. That there's an appreciation. Like when my parents first met you, which that's a whole other story, but they came for the wedding for the first time and they listened to him play in our music room and listened to your music. And one of the first things my mother said, who she had
Your father fell asleep.
I know, but let me talk about my mother first because she was the one who was not really happy about me being with a musician. She just had these ideas about like late nights and rock and roll music, which you weren't in that stage anymore. And she said, "Hey, Alex, this is like your service to the world is your music." And I could see him like as if he had never heard that someone else say that to him quite that way.
Yes, my parents certainly didn't look at it that way. They shut the door when I was practicing.
I know, and that was something that you did for a while. It's almost like a trauma pattern that like me and many different people would tell you, no, Alex, we like what you're practicing, do it here. Don't go away. And so thus we want you out of your crab
Out of
shell,
the closet.
out of the crab hole. At times it's nice. One more question. Why do you call the world a cacophony?
Oh.
Yeah, like
That's a little complex, but I guess we can approach that.
that might be our
Cacophony is
closing
this like,
thing.
there's so much diversity in the world, but there's also diversity in sound, all together happening can be cacophonous. So this is an interesting aspect about being a musician, or at least for me, being a musician. And again, here is another thing that I don't know, I think I'm born with, or we, or whoever, you're born with or not, or to varying degrees. But I hear sounds, and my mind kind of creates order with the sounds I hear. One time we were down by the Eno River near our house, and the river had different sections, and we were sitting kind of in between two sections of the river, and I was listening, and Lena says, what are you listening to? And I was saying I was listening to the way this section and this section, like they're like two different parts of an orchestra. I was hearing the notation. There's a word for people that can look at a wall or look at the clouds, and you see faces. Your mind automatically, everyone would see maybe different faces or different things, but your mind wants to create form, make it understandable in some way, without even trying. It just happens. Usually stucco walls or different ceilings that are a mixture of rough material. Your mind does that. Well, I think I don't know, there is a word for that, but there should be a word for that in auditory, where your mind just hears. I don't know if there is. I've never discovered it. Your mind hears sounds and just wants to create order and patterns and stuff with
it
that.
reminds
those
me
sounds.
of dreams when I write about my dreams. I do feel like as I write about them in the first thing in the morning, there creates an order. An order is created out of that sort of maybe unconscious, subconscious part of ourselves, our interpretations, then order. Yeah, and then I really like that way of seeing creativity.
Yeah, I think I don't know, it's something you develop or not, but I think it's there to some degree or other, more or less in most people, where they hear something. I mean, you can hear a song and it triggers a song that it sounds like.
Or if we talk about, painting, you could do it sort of free flow, or you might want to imitate something you see. I'm not a visual artist, so.
Or Jackson Pollock style, you go, and then your mind just creates order at whatever that is that happened down there.
Yeah, because maybe, innately as humans, we want to, we want to create order, some order.
It seems that your mind wants to do that.
Mm.
You can't, once you know how to read, you can't look at a stop sign and not see, and not have it say
Not
stop.
read.
You can't look at something and not read it. Your mind automatically, once you learn, it does that. All
The
right.
mind is a powerful thing.
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
Anything?
You
Okay.
become a slave to your instrument.
Okay. So, I think you've. Oh, I think the only. I'd like to reiterate how you've lived your life working with your strong points, and then what you aren't as good at, you.
Or don't like to be involved in. I found, and that's partly being creative, figuring out, and I think that's important for everybody. One of the things that saddens me, and I think makes people unhappy, is when they're not utilizing their capacity in life, whatever that is. And if it's accounting and that's your love and capacity, then you're happy doing it. But a lot of people are doing things to get by because they have to get by, but there are other things, their real abilities or the things that nurture them aren't being developed enough. And I think that makes people unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think where creativity comes in, part of it is you have to find creative ways to live your life utilizing those things that are your capacities or the things that nurture you.
And in a way outside the box.
And avoiding the
being-
things that, like I shop between 10 o'clock in the morning and 12 noon because I don't like crowds. I don't like traffic. There we go. My teacher, my attention deficit teacher.
Your sister.
The one that I can't hide anything from because she knows me right off as hyperactive attention deficit kid. Anyway, and my sister Carol, who I'm referring to, mentioned to me how I have ordered my life to avoid the things that bother me. And I've done a pretty reasonable job of that.
Mm-hmm.
And utilized the things I like to do, like cooking and playing music. And not everything is great, but, blowing leaves is not my favorite thing. But,
It's useful, though.
it's useful. I like to be useful.
Yes.
That's right.
And, sorry, I blanked out right now. I was going to follow through with your thought, but that's okay.
Of utilizing
Yeah,
your capacity.
your capacities.
Everyone's
Or
capacity.
your gifts, yeah.
Your gifts and being nourished.
Yeah.
Nourish and being both ways.
Or, nourishing oneself. Yeah, creativity. Because if you nourish oneself, that might exude naturally out. Yeah,
Maybe.
maybe.
I like enchiladas. Oh, that's another story. There you go, my attention deficit.
Actually, Alex is doing very well, I think, in this.
I'm a good boy. Do I get chocolate milk and a cookie afterwards?
His favorite thing is being tickled. Like this, like lightly.
We don't want to do that in public.
See, he's funny that way because I'm like, let's just show people the nice things. And Alex is like, no, that's. That's
This is not the Sonny and Cher show.
No? So, closing? Any closing statements? Maybe you want to share, your website or your,
Yeah.
for people who don't know you and they're going to see
Yeah, I
this.
thought some of this would get on the screen like that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I guess you can get on the screen.
Silent Days Music.
I just updated my
It's his
website
website.
too, and
Yep.
it has quite a lot of things. There's creative endeavors on there. There's collaborations with all kinds of people in Mexico and Cuba, including Tones for Your Bones with Leland. And there's different drum performances and videos. And my favorite, the thing that we just finished, is Mysterious Earth, which has photos from. It's a piece that I composed, and then we added photos of.
You did.
Our,
Yeah, you did.
I didn't, and Pete, the engineer and bass player. We added photos from our Himalayas, from all over our travels around the world, and mostly mountains and water.
And I really enjoyed that in that period of kind of frustration of you recovering from your inguinal hernia surgery. You know, we all kind of know what that frustration is like with maybe.
Should I put it, where should I put
No,
it?
it's all right. I'll write it in later.
You write it in?
Yeah,
All right.
but
The website?
that you channeled. That basically, you know, energy is about really movement, and you really focus and you move. You know, you're instead of keep focusing on how frustrated you were.
Right, I untied my tubes and composed another piece. I said, well, I can't do anything else, I might as well write something. And then it felt better. It felt better to do something than just, you know, lay there. Or I was able to, the doctor said, don't walk, don't do anything but walk for a month.
Yeah, and walking to Alex was
It was
doing
boring.
nothing.
and it was, I didn't realize how hard, I'm active all the time, and it's so hard not to be active. Not to lift that 3-gallon water container, not to mow the lawn when the grass is too long, and I got in trouble for it. But
Yeah, you got reprimanded for
yeah,
that.
and it hurt too. It wasn't, you know.
Well, and what's great is that, well, you know, you channeled your energy
Yeah.
to something that you used your strong points and your capacity and your gifts to, and then it becomes shared to the world, which I think
Yes.
is what's beautiful.
Yeah, and like the CD, it's like we have that there now, and it was great. You know, I'm really happy with it. It's something we did. It's something that, and the CD too. This is my website also doesn't have this CD, I don't think, but it has several of the CDs of mostly original music, and
they're also available as downloads on digital platform.
right, you can download
Yeah.
song by song if you want to. If you just want Long Day to remember how difficult it was to write a song when you're busy all the time. Anyway, yeah, all that stuff. Several of the CDs exist on the website.
How about some music now? Did you bring that balafon for a reason?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so we're
Why
gonna
not?
wrap things up for you with some recent creativity. This has never been shown in public yet, except our dear friend who came
Last
yesterday.
night.
Yeah, got to see and hear this cute little instrument. Oh, let me help you here. This is gonna fall. There you go. I got it.
I got it.
You got it?
I got it. Let go.
No, you're not holding on to the bottom part. The whole table's
Oh,
gonna fall.
oh.
Yeah.
Can we get it?
Yeah, I got it. There.
There's another one of these somewhere. There it is. Can you? Oh, you
No,
can't see it
You have
really.
to. You can tilt it for people.
Yeah, we can show it like this. This is a balafon. You know, I just bought it last week, and in a store right on Guest Road in Durham called Africa Land, and or African Land.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful little store full of all kinds of art and musical instruments and clothing from Africa. The fellow's from Nigeria. I'm not sure where this particular balafon comes from. It's a basic 5-note scale. They call it a pentatonic scale. Pentatonic scales exist all over the world, from Peru to China. And it just kind of sounds like it's a very good vehicle for creativity. I don't really know the instrument, but
There you go,
it
Alex.
just makes music.
Alex at play. Can you tell?
It's just, you could just approach it and whatever comes out, you know, but it makes music half of it. It's a great gateway to creativity. You know.
It kept him very engaged at night.
And then there's harmonies.
And I composed something on there that first evening. I said, "Do you like it, Alex?" And he was like going to sleep with it. So it's very cute.
She plays the happy drum. That's another thing.
Yeah. And you said this was beautiful. Yeah.
I like
So-
wood. I'm attracted. I feel in my element with wood.
Mm-hmm.
I like looking at wood. I like splitting wood. I like heating my house with wood. And my conga drums are wood. And here we have another wood instrument.
You play wood
See, it's-
recorders and
Yeah, my recorders are
flutes and-
rosewood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's kind of like
It
I like the
feeds
sound
it
of
feeds
wood.
your fire.
Yeah.
We were commenting on how he's a fire Chinese astrology sign.
Do you want to? Are we gonna close it
We're-
up with that?
Yeah,
You're
and
gonna
that.
put the.
Yeah, we have a song for you to close this. That I'm going to project a photo onto the screen, and the context is that last week, or the week before, I don't know. It was the 28th of October, so that was last week. I went to the first day of a Lady of Guadalupe. 46 is the start of the 46th day.
And who is the Lady of Guadalupe?
Rosary prayer. Lady of Guadalupe is the patron goddess of Mexico, but she's revered, through a lot of Latin America. She was gifted to me, a statue was gifted to me to my clinic to bless all the people, bring that mothering, caring energy, and I say the energy of compassion. And so I was very happy to be invited to one of my longtime clients' home. And I took a picture of the beautiful roses and the Lady of Guadalupe, and then Jesus on the cross behind her. Because, they are Catholic. And I grew up in Catholic countries. So, to me, churches were always a place of like deep reverence. Like it was very calming always for me to go into church. And I realized that I feel that way going into temples in general of prayer. So I show Alex this photo, and
You keep moving up.
no, yeah, because I have to share the screen, and I show Alex this photo, and you immediately thought of a song.
Yeah, a song came to mind when I saw the photo.
And then he sings the song to me, and I think it's a perfect description of the Virgin, or the Lady, the Goddess, and Jesus, whatever name you want to give it. And so we're going to share it for you.
The photo is them side by side.
Yeah, so let me get back here. Share screen. Let's see.
And now I'm sure Claudia could do a really good rendition of this.
You want to mention who Claudia is?
Claudia is a dear friend of ours in Colombia, who's she teaches. Well, I don't know if she's still teaching English as a second language, but she's a singer and a teacher.
And a life coach at the University of
and
Medellin.
Hector is her husband, who's a bandmate of ours when they were here.
Which was, it was like probably 10 years ago, huh?
Couldn't have been 10 years ago.
I
We were in
think
the
so.
Himalayas 10 years, so it was more longer than that.
Longer than that,
Right.
wow. Yeah. Okay, I got it up. And, so what Alex means by that is that our voices, what did you say about your voice, Alex? Tell
Well,
everybody.
they're not perfect.
No, but the story about you singing and your family.
All right. Yeah, we'll have to go into the history of that. It's a saying in the United States, and at least in this country, that singing runs in some people's family. But when I sing, my family runs. And that's how it was when I grew up.
And my voice has, how would you?
She's getting there.
I'm getting
she's
better.
working on it. We're both late bloomers.
Yes. Can you see the photo? Can you go like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, part of it is Alex and I like to laugh, and I don't know, we like to laugh.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Let's do the song. I think they'll get it. You look at the photo and you listen to the lyrics of this song was written in the 1920s.
It was written in 1927. Shall we give away the title?
Well, who wrote it?
Oh, Harry M. Woods. He's an American
Songwriter.
white person.
What matter who color is this?
I don't know. It seems to matter, but anyways, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, let me get a. I see this helps drinking water before, right, Claudia? I think. Oh, we ain't got a barrel of money. Maybe we're ragged and funny, but we'll travel along, singing a song, side by side. Don't know what's coming tomorrow. Maybe it's trouble and sorrow, but we'll travel the road, singing, sharing our load, side by side.
Through all kinds of weather, what if the sky should fall? Just as long as we're together, it doesn't matter at all.
Oh, we ain't got a barrel of money. Maybe we're ragged and funny, but we'll travel along, singing a song, side by side. And we thought this was a perfect depiction of the duo of Jesus and
The
Lady of Guadalupe. So, thank you, and thank you for being with us. Don't go away yet. I'm just going to stop the recordings here. Thank you, Facebook, for being here. Thank you to your cousin. I think Faye was here.
Oh.
Felix was watching.
Cool.
Lynn. I'm sorry we can't see the comments too well on.
We'll later.
Yeah,
I think,
we'll
right?
see him later.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, and we're now gonna do a connection on Zoom. But bye bye, Facebook.
Adios.